There are moments in history when a single human being, driven by an idea so large and so seemingly impossible that the rest of the world either laughs or looks away, decides to bet everything, every dollar, every hour, every ounce of energy and reputation they possess, on a dream that most rational people would describe as pure lunacy. And in the year 2002, in a warehouse in El Segundo, California, one such moment occurred when a 30-year-old South African-born entrepreneur named Elon Musk, fresh from pocketing approximately $165 million from the sale of PayPal to eBay, sat down and made the single most consequential financial decision of the 21st century by investing $100 million of that windfall into a brand new aerospace company he called Space Exploration Technologies Corporation, SpaceX, with the stated goal of making humanity a multi-planetary species and ultimately colonizing the planet Mars, a mission so audacious, so technically complex, and so financially risky that every serious aerospace expert he consulted told him clearly and plainly that he was going to fail. And yet in 2026, as Bloomberg reports that SpaceX is weighing a confidential IPO filing that could seek a valuation of more than $1.75 trillion, a figure that would make it larger than all but 5 companies in the entire S&P 500, the story of how Elon Musk built that empire from nothing is one of the most extraordinary entrepreneurial sagas in the history of human civilization. To truly understand SpaceX, you must first understand the man who built it, and Elon Musk's origin story is itself a testament to the kind of restless, boundary-breaking ambition that defines everything he has ever touched. Born on June 28, 1971 in Pretoria, South Africa, to an engineer father and a Canadian model mother, Musk displayed an exceptional talent for computers from his earliest childhood, selling his first commercially created video game called Blastar at the age of just 12 for approximately $500, before emigrating to Canada at 18 to attend Queen's University and later transferring to the University of Pennsylvania, where he earned degrees in both economics and physics. And it was during these years that Musk developed the intellectual framework, a combination of first principles thinking, massive risk tolerance, and an almost pathological unwillingness to accept conventional limits, that would later allow him to attempt what no private company had ever dared to attempt before. And that framework was first tested commercially when Musk co-founded Zip2, a city guide software company, sold it for $307 million in 1999, then founded X.com, which became PayPal and was sold to eBay for $1.5 billion in 2002, leaving Musk with $165 million in his personal account, and the most dangerous thing a supremely ambitious person can possess: enough money to pursue the impossible. SpaceX was incorporated in May 2002 in Hawthorne, California, and from its very first days, the company operated on a philosophy that was completely alien to the traditional aerospace industry, while established giants like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman relied on government cost-plus contracts, legacy manufacturing processes, and rockets that were used once and discarded at a cost of hundreds of millions of dollars per launch. Musk wanted to build rockets that were radically cheaper, rapidly reusable, and privately funded, essentially doing for space travel what Henry Ford had done for the automobile, turning it from a privilege of the extraordinarily wealthy into something approaching accessibility. And the first rocket SpaceX designed to prove this philosophy was called the Falcon 1, a small 2-stage liquid-fueled rocket that Musk intended to launch for a fraction of the cost of its competitors. The road to that first successful launch was one of the most brutal in the history of aviation, because Falcon 1 failed on its first launch attempt in March 2006, when a fuel line leak caused by a corroded nut ignited a fire that destroyed the rocket less than 1 minute after liftoff, crashed on its second attempt in March 2007, when the rocket developed an oscillation problem that caused structural failure, and then suffered its third consecutive catastrophic failure in August 2008, a blow so devastating that Musk later admitted he could barely speak when it happened, because by that point SpaceX was nearly out of money. Musk had simultaneously invested in Tesla, which was also on the verge of bankruptcy, and he had spent almost his entire PayPal fortune on 2 companies that both appeared to be dying at the same moment. But then, on September 28, 2008, in what became one of the most celebrated moments in the history of private enterprise, the fourth Falcon 1 launch succeeded perfectly, becoming the first privately developed liquid-fueled rocket in history to reach Earth orbit, a triumph so significant that it saved SpaceX from extinction, convinced NASA to award the company a $1.6 billion commercial resupply services contract just months later, and validated beyond any doubt that what Elon Musk was attempting was not lunacy, but vision. From that single orbital success in 2008, SpaceX began its methodical, relentless transformation of the global space industry, developing the much larger Falcon 9 rocket, which first launched in June 2010 and went on to become the most reliable orbital rocket ever built, and then achieving what many aerospace engineers had insisted was physically impossible: the successful landing and recovery of an orbital-class rocket's first stage, when on December 21, 2015, after delivering 11 Orbcomm communication satellites to orbit, a Falcon 9 booster autonomously flew back to Landing Zone 1 at Cape Canaveral and touched down vertically in a maneuver so smooth and so precise that the watching world could barely process what it was seeing, because in that single moment SpaceX had accomplished something that fundamentally changed the economics of spaceflight forever, proving that rockets did not have to be thrown away after a single use. And as Universe magazine documented, in marking the 10-year anniversary of that landing, Falcon 9 went on to achieve a recovery success rate of 525 out of 531 attempts, with individual boosters being reflown more than 20 times, slashing the cost of orbital launches so dramatically that competitors who had charged $200 million or more per mission were suddenly facing a company that could deliver the same service for $60 million or less. The Dragon spacecraft, SpaceX's orbital capsule, brought another historic milestone when on May 30th, 2020, it carried NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley to the International Space Station on the Demo 2 mission, making SpaceX the first private company in history to launch humans to orbit, ending America's 9-year dependence on Russian Soyuz rockets that had cost NASA approximately $90 million per seat. And SpaceX's Crew Dragon has since maintained a perfect 100% mission success rate across more than 20 launches to the ISS, cementing the company's position as NASA's primary crewed launch provider and winning it contracts for a combined total of 14 operational crew missions, a partnership that has fundamentally reshaped the relationship between government space agencies and private aerospace companies, not just in America, but across the world. But no SpaceX achievement carries the weight or the ambition of Starship, the company's fully reusable Super Heavy launch vehicle that stands taller than the Statue of Liberty at 121 meters, produces more thrust than any rocket ever built, and represents SpaceX's ultimate tool for the colonization of Mars, which, after a series of spectacular but technically instructive early explosions, achieved its first fully successful flight in 2024, completed multiple successful test flights throughout 2025, including Flight 10, which demonstrated the ability to catch the returning Super Heavy booster using the launch tower's mechanical arms, nicknamed Mechazilla, and is now targeting its first uncrewed flight to Mars as early as late 2026, according to Mashable, with crewed Mars missions planned for the early 2030s, a timeline that was once dismissed as fantasy, but now, given SpaceX's record of delivering on milestones that everyone said were impossible, is being taken with deadly seriousness by space agencies and governments around the world. Powering all of this achievement and fueling SpaceX's stratospheric financial growth is Starlink, the company's satellite internet constellation, which has grown from a concept in 2015 to a network of over 6,000 active satellites in low Earth orbit, providing broadband internet to more than 10 million active customers across more than 100 countries as of late 2025, according to Reddit and Business Insider reports, generating approximately $11.8 billion in revenue in 2025 alone, according to Space News, with projections pointing to $22 billion to $24 billion in total SpaceX revenue for 2026, according to BNN Bloomberg, and contributing so massively to the company's overall financial performance that Reuters reported in January 2026 that SpaceX generated approximately $8 billion in profit on $15 to $16 billion of revenue in 2025, a profitability that even Silicon Valley's most celebrated technology companies would regard with envy. And that has transformed SpaceX from a risk-laden startup into one of the most financially powerful private companies in the world. The numbers that surround SpaceX in 2026 are numbers that belong to a different category of corporate achievement entirely, a valuation of more than $1.75 trillion being discussed in connection with a potential IPO that Bloomberg reported in March 2026 would rank among the largest public offerings in history, a figure that at $1.75 trillion would make SpaceX bigger than Amazon, bigger than Alphabet, bigger than Saudi Aramco, and second only to a handful of the absolute giants of global business, All of this built in just 24 years from a $100 million personal investment by a man who in 2008 was nearly bankrupt and watching his rockets explode. And what makes the SpaceX story unlike any other story in the history of business is not merely the financial scale of what Musk has built, but the fact that every dollar of that $1.7 trillion valuation is underpinned by a mission: the survival and expansion of human consciousness beyond a single fragile planet that no spreadsheet can fully capture and no stock price can adequately represent. Because Elon Musk did not build SpaceX to become the world's richest man. He built it because he genuinely believes that without a backup civilization beyond Earth, everything humanity has ever created, every song and painting and book and discovery, every moment of love and beauty and achievement across the 5,000 years of recorded human history, hangs by a single thread, and SpaceX is the needle he is using to sew a second one.